All right. Hello. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hello.
Very exciting. We've just watched season 1, episode 7. Call Me Irresponsible.
Always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Season 1 is honestly, I think it's so interesting because it had such a strong start that even the weak episodes are pretty good. So even the ones where you feel like there might be kind of a little bit of a lull, it's still good TV.
Yeah, I remember there was a Reddit poll trying to find the best episode of Frasier, and this episode was the only one that didn't receive any votes at all. No one voted for it.
Here's the thing, it's just because there's so many good episodes. You have to call some of them, I guess, and I guess this is one.
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly bad episode. I feel like it's just a bit... I think it's okay.
No, certainly I would never classify it as bad. It's just, I don't know, season 1 was so fired that it's really hard to... I would probably rank this near the bottom of season 1, but it's still really good. It's better than episodes of most television shows, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's why we do a Frasier podcast, because it's just good.
Absolutely. So, Simone, you liked this episode a lot.
I did. I felt like this episode kind of showed some of the writers' little ha-has and being relevant with the times. There were some things that they've made a lot of references to things that were very 1993. So I think I liked some of that. And I also liked how, and then I'll talk about it at the last scene where it's it's the sex scene, and how the writers were kind of being funny in how they delivered that scene. And I just thought it was really good acting. So I really liked this episode. It was so, I don't know, it spoke to me.
Yeah, right on both of those counts, though. It is such a Frasier way to approach it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the synopsis. So we open on the now familiar side of Frasier doing his radio show. I noticed that a lot of these episodes open with Frasier doing his radio show. So he speaks briefly to Hank, who's trying to hear himself on the radio before moving on to Marco. Marco's having problems in his relationship, namely that he's keeping his options open in case someone better comes along. Frasier encourages Marco to break things off if he can't commit and ends the call. He asks Roz what's up with guys like Marco, and Roz points out that all men are like Marco, leading Frasier to paint a bleak picture of Roz's future, much to her annoyance.
Tell me, listeners, what is it with guys like that? Hey, Roz, you've been around the block a few times. You ever run into a guy like Marco?
Oh, they're all Marcos. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Marco.
Oh, come on. I mean, if that was so, then no one would be having a relationship.
Well, I'm not. My sister's not. None of my friends are. I've seen the future, and its name is Marco.
Roz gets a bit of the short end of the stick here, doesn't she?
Yes, I was not in love with how Frasier was slut-shaming her. But this is what I'm talking about, with the writing. You can tell, there were some very clever, shrewd people writing for Roz, the character development of Roz. I just think because she's so on the money with what she's saying, because if you fast forward 25 years, women still kind of are facing some of what Roz is talking about, because she's kind of saying most men are like Marco, and and it's just something that it just sticks. I just thought it was really cool in that way.
It was 1993 when this episode was written, but now there's just layers of complexity to the same problem. You've got characters like Marco who are just looking for the next best thing. Can you imagine if the Frasier universe had online dating?
Exactly. I wrote in my notes, I put Roz was talking about the 4B feminist movement in South Korea, and we didn't even know it. You know what I mean? Because she was basically saying we should just leave men alone because they're not worth it, and and it's wow, Roz was such a feminist. And it's so cool that Frasier gives her space to do that, and he doesn't attack her. And I guess maybe that's what it is. It's I like seeing Roz stand up for herself, and it's refreshing to see a man like Frasier not attack her. Where nowadays in social media and stuff, you see a lot of time women standing up for themselves, and men just bashing them and calling them the horrible names. So I don't know. Just something about the writing with this, it just really spoke to me, and I was like, wow. I wish we could go back to that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I feel like the issue with Marco would just be increased a lot with online dating now, with all your Tinders and everything. It's just
Exactly.
so
Like,
so
so
very
happy to
much.
kind of like look back and just see like how dating has changed and like, women being just like out there in the scene and how some things are just not new under the sun, as my mother would
They
say.
truly aren't. The only new thing is, I guess, the perception of infinite options now. Like, you don't have to just meet someone in person anymore.
Yeah, Marco would have found someone better a lot sooner, I feel like, if he
By
had
that night,
access to
like by
Tinder.
the next day,
Yeah, just swiping.
he
Yep.
would have swiped. Yeah, exactly. And then Fraser would be without a job. So
Right.
Exactly.
Well, okay, though, like I wonder sometimes about this. What would Frasier be like in 2024? Like, would he have a? I mean, he'd have a podcast, not a radio show. But like, what kind of advice person would he be? Like, would he lean in a certain direction? Would he be just
right.
totally objective, or would he like have to have a brand? That's a little more niche.
Yeah, you know what?
Mm.
You know what would be a great way to test that? I feel like if you want, this is for the dating, like the people who develop dating apps. Have like the character Frasier do like a promo and like be like, talking about dating advice and stuff. I think that would be so cool because he has such a cool way about him that I think like,
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think it would be a cool idea to see Frasier as like a dating expert in 2024, like
It'd be
talking to
interesting.
people about dating.
Although Frasier in 2024, like I don't know how in touch he would be.
Oh, that's true.
Like he would have to be like 1993 Frasier time traveling to 2024 because
Oh,
I mean, like at this point, I mean, I think his age group would change the relatability for a lot of the advice.
yeah, true. Good point.
So I don't know, like, because what is he? He's 41 in season one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so if he's 41 in season one, and that's 1993, he's quite a bit older now. So I wonder about the applicability here. But maybe he's got an interesting take.
Maybe my soul just wants to go back to 1993. Like maybe when 2025
Oh, same.
comes in, I'm going to be living in 1993. So when it's the new year, I'm going back to 1993.
Yeah. Can we do that? Can it be like Y2K, except we just go back?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing
Just
about
go
the
back.
I'm longing for the 90s because everything's too complicated.
It
Truly.
is. It's too much information, too much going on nowadays.
Agreed. Anyways, back to Frasier and Marco and
Yes.
Roz.
Yeah, so Frasier was pretty rude about Roz's relationship, I think, or her lack of, and was putting her out there as someone being stuck in internal spinsterhood.
What do you think, Seattle? Are there any non-Marcos out there? Or is Roz here destined to live a life of hopeless, loveless spinsterhood? Back after this.
Gee, I just love it when you include me in your show.
There's that relatability. Nobody uses that
Yeah.
word these days. So yeah.
No. Spinster is a bit of an old-fashioned word now, isn't it?
Is.
I think that it's different too because now versus in 1993, I think it's a little different, a little more acceptable to stay single.
Yep.
It's I think you can be yourself as a woman of a certain age and like not have to have a husband.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
not that you
Later.
couldn't in 1993, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Like, all right. No, I get what you're saying. Absolutely. Dating was a huge part of these sitcoms in the 90s as well. Like, everything was about who they're dating. I've noticed with the new Frasier, it doesn't seem as focused on who Frasier's dating.
Mhm.
Like, I think he's been on maybe 2 dates in the 20 odd episodes they've done so far, which is a lot less than what they did in the original series.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So later, Martin and Daphne are decorating the living room with Christmas decorations while Frasier naps. Daphne's telling one of her stories about her Grammy Moon when Frasier enters and is immediately roped into a family photo for Christmas cards. Frasier argues with Martin about wearing his elf hat, and Daphne tries to break it up by invoking the spirit of Christmas, only to be reminded it's October 23rd.
Celebrating the winter holidays earlier. And like it's just barely November right now, right? And I see holiday decorations already in the store.
Me too.
I know.
Saw them today. I saw somebody had Christmas out already. I mean, but to their credit, I do live in a very wintry place, so like you don't want to wait till it's cold and snowy to put your decorations out. So I guess I love cats.
The Christmas decorations are out in the shops here already. It's just very weird because we still do the wintry theme with all our decorations, yet it's like
But you guys don't
really
have
hot.
snow. Not one snow.
We don't have snow. And it's
That's so
middle of
funny.
summer.
What?
But we get
Mother.
the same trees and we get all the little snow and all the other things.
Cute.
I never knew that. So funny to me.
I'll take a photo next time I'm at shops.
Will you
Well,
be
we also
Fraser and Daphne and Marty and have like a theme, like have a hat and everything?
I support this.
Yeah.
And did you
Yeah,
see
well,
how Eddie made his appearance with his antlers?
I love
yeah,
it. You know what?
Daphne's
I do that to my dog too.
They're such good antlers as well. They're so big.
They
They
were
really are.
like bells. I was like, okay, Eddie, I see you.
It's not like a little thing. It's these huge, enormous antlers. They're like really great.
It's awesome.
Such a good dog. Such a good
Oh my
dog
goodness,
actor.
It's so funny. Frasier hates on Eddie too much. He's a great dog.
He is. I've got cats, and I'm trying to imagine putting antlers on my cats.
Oh, they wouldn't let you, right? Like
No,
cats,
they
like,
wouldn't. No. No hope in hell.
Yeah, no.
Funny.
Get away
Eddie's
from
just special.
No, one year I'd love to have like a wintry Christmas somewhere.
Not
Have it be cold.
it's still warm here when we get it. We can put a Santa hat on a cactus. Well, I'll have to go visit Simone to get some snow.
Yes, I'm in Buffalo, New York. It's about as cold as it can get. It's icy and cold. So if you want some winter, come on through, girl.
Sounds good.
We're waiting for you.
Because it's warm enough here that we build up a little house for Santa and then air condition it so he can still be in his full suit.
Oh, that's funny.
What are you guys doing over there?
He'll still be in his full, like, long
Here.
woolen suit and sitting in a little hut that's fully air conditioned so he's not dying.
So funny. Do you have fake snow for him, or like how's that work?
Sometimes you do see fake snow sometimes.
That's
A
so
lot of
funny.
times it's like the fir trees.
Shoveling snow. I find this snow cosplay very offensive. I find it offensive.
Funny.
Yes, I did see snow once. I did go on a trip to New Zealand and there was snow there, so I have seen snow.
Oh,
Very nice.
So I have touched snow.
Experience. All right, back to Frasier.
Alright. Frasier finishes his show and Roz tells him there's a fan waiting for him in the hallway. The fan turns out to be Catherine, Marco's girlfriend, rather ex-girlfriend, because he dumped her. He starts ranting at Frasier at how he ruined her relationship, when Frasier interjects with his side, revealing that Marco told him, and most of Seattle, that he was only keeping her around until somebody better came along. This upsets Catherine. Frasier awkwardly consoles her and offers her some M&Ms.
Listen, can I get you something? A drink of water?
No.
M&Ms?
Plain or peanut?
Whichever you like.
Peanut.
Oh.
Do you like the M&Ms as a prescription here?
This is one of a few times they actually mention something by brand. I think there's an episode later on where they mention a Coke, but M&M's just seems very specific as a brand. It's not like, how about some candy?
Right.
No, but I think it's a good mention because it's so specific because they both like the yellow ones. If he just said, here, have a candy, that joke doesn't really hit. So
True.
So I think they kind of had to choose one, whether it was like M&Ms or Skittles or something. But I kind of agree with their observation. The different colors of M&Ms are different. I don't know. I sort them by color order, and I eat them in a specific order based on how I perceive their taste. So I get it.
I disagree. I don't think they taste different at all. I just eat them as is.
Now that you guys are talking about like the M&Ms, I distinctly remember, and maybe I'll have to Google this, but I felt like in the 90s, I felt like they were really campaigning and introducing like M&Ms as their characters. Like I remember seeing a lot of those commercials and stuff. And I think like a demarcation line of like millennials could be like, I can remember M&Ms before they introduced the green M&M. Like there was a time when it was just yellow, red, blue, and
yeah,
green.
I remember it being a big thing when they introduced a new color.
different colors. Yeah, so it's like I think it's like so of the time, like the M&Ms, because that was kind of like the only candy on the block, so.
So you guys, peanut or plain?
Peanut, just like our friends on the show.
Yep.
Yeah,
Peanut.
you got to go peanut. So Frasier buys a packet and they sit in the hall as they talk. Frasier asks Catherine why she stayed with Marco if he wouldn't commit, and that it's not worth settling for someone who isn't madly in love with her. Catherine doubts that there are any men capable of falling madly in love. Frasier reasons that both men and women need to be loved, and Catherine says that, oh, your wife is a very lucky woman. That's when Frasier has to reveal I'm sure she agrees with you now that we're divorced.
Moment, because one, it's just a convenient segue to the what happens later in the episode, but it also is kind of a reminder that season 1 is about Frasier starting over after his divorce, and so it's kind of like, hey, yeah, remember that? So It's a good way to remind the audience of the context without being too mopey.
Yeah.
I was kind of rooting for Frasier too. Like, it was nice to see him like kind of opening up to someone other than his father and his brother. I just thought it was nice. You can see like the progression in time. Like, time has moved on. There's the holidays. He's kind of talking to somebody now in a more flirty kind of way. But I like that for Frasier, even though ethically there's problems.
Yeah, and we'll get to the problems ethically in a minute, but so as they talk, they become more comfortable with each other, and Catherine notices that Frasier also likes the yellow M&Ms.
Cute.
The conversation moves to first dates, with both of them sharing what they don't like about them. Frasier shares that he eats at restaurants alone, while Catherine says she can't do that. She has to have the TV on for company. Frasier asks if that's what she'll be doing tonight, and Catherine eats an M&M out of Frasier's fingers, causing Frasier to finish off his M&Ms in one go.
Ugh, that's gross for me. Don't be eating like what?
Don't know where his fingers have been.
Yeah, I don't know where that ultimate's been too. Like, ugh, everybody just stay to yourself.
Being a bit seductive here. She's moved on from Marco pretty quickly.
Yeah.
She was upset with him a few minutes ago.
Can't dwell on Marco forever.
Yeah.
True.
Really.
Who is Marco? Marco's guest voice. I feel like I know who it is. I've just got to double check it.
Familiar. Let's look it up.
Bruno Kirby. I don't know who that is.
It does sound like a very familiar voice.
No, he was in City Slickers, Where Harry Met Sally. Good Morning, Vietnam. He's been in a few things.
It wasn't David Hyde Pierce in... Wait, did you say Sleepless in Seattle? Wait, what was the movie?
No, I think
I
City
City Slickers.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Meg Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, David Hyde Pierce was in Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah.
I remember that. David Hyde Pierce in the Seattle Connection.
I know. Just before he was on Frasier.
Funny how that works. Yeah, so our new friend Catherine's moved on from Marco and is looking at Frasier.
Yeah. 3 days later at Cafe Nervosa, Frasier's having his palm read by Catherine. She has to go, but they've got another date that night. Frasier tells her to be there by 8, but Catherine can't make it until 8:30 because she's got to change. Frasier makes a corny "don't ever change" joke, which causes the entire cafe to groan.
Made me like belly laugh.
I'm a sucker for puns and for those kind of jokes.
Oh yeah.
Frasier's full of them.
He really is.
Yeah.
Notes. I have detailed notes on this scene in the kiss in the. I'm not gonna. Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
All right. So they kiss, which is seen by Niles, who's just entering the cafe. Catherine leaves and Niles joins Frasier and starts quizzing him about who that Baby-Rama was.
That phrase is just hilarious, especially coming from Niles.
And the way he says it, that dumb accent he does when he's like...
I'll dispense with the usual adolescent teasing and come straight to the point. Who was that Babel-Rama?
Niles, please don't try to be hip. You remind me of Bob Hope when he dresses up as the Fonz.
So, like, I just want to just pick apart this scene for a second. So this is for real. Like, I truly had to watch the kiss scene twice because at first, okay. And then I was like, what is it about? Like, what is the formula here? Because it's coming across as very sexy and lusty, right? So I said, was it? Because that was the first time that you ever really saw Frasier like in a sexy kind of way. And that makes sense because he's going to get like his chest hair out, right? So I came up formula. So the formula is, it's a part of it is he's chivalrous. He's being chivalrous. Like he's putting her jacket on and he's like, he's dorky with the lame joke, but then he's also affectionate. So maybe that's the combination here that kind of activates Frasier like as a sexy person. Because of that, I'm like, what is it about it that's like he seems like very sexy right now? So I think it's,
and we all know that you are pro Frasier.
oh, you're right.
It's
Sorry.
true.
Frasier.
Sorry. But then the other point that I had too is that we kind of see the writers kind of laughing at us because when people kiss, people will look, and we kind of see like the voyeur exhibitionist. Like you see Niles kind of being like looking in, and then like us as the viewers are like looking in and watching Frasier be kind of like kissy. So I thought that was kind of clever of the writers to kind of be like, hey, we're being sexy, and oh, we know you like it too, because everybody likes to take a look at, people kissing.
Yeah. And this is the
Interesting.
first time Frasier's gotten to be sexy in the series so far. We're up to episode 7, and this is him with a woman.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of like, ooh, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
So Frasier reveals how they met to Niles, and Niles spills sugar on the table. He claims Frasier can't date Catherine because she's involved with one of Frasier's patients. Frasier rationalizes what he's doing, which Niles disagrees with because that is believing that his conscience wouldn't be clear. Frasier doesn't care. He's happy with Catherine. He doesn't need Niles' approval. He doesn't need Niles for anything, except for a ride after work.
I love that. It's such a good 1-2 punch. I don't need you. Just kidding. Can I have a ride?
Yeah.
I love this mention though, because it really is core to the episode. So first off, there's the ethical part, right? So people who work in the mental health field, the ethical codes that we abide by, prevent what's called dual relationships. And so basically, it is actually like kind of codified in these guidelines that if you have another kind of personal relationship with someone, then you can't treat them ethically. It muddies it too much. So this includes things like family members, close neighbors, friends, romantic partners. And if you find that you are getting into that situation with someone that you treat, you also have to excuse yourself and help them find someone else to work with. So it's actually like, it's interesting that Niles has to be the one to remind Frasier of this, because it's it could be a career ender for someone who's, practicing in that field, to have a dual relationship. It's definitely unethical, and in some states it could be illegal. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing, but Frasier doesn't care at the moment.
Of course, he's got to work through it in a comedic way.
He does. So Frasier's radio show's about to start in 20 seconds, and Roz reveals Marco's on line 1. Frasier's adamant about not talking to him, but Roz insists. Marco reveals that he broke up with his girlfriend, and Frasier congratulates him, trying to get him off the phone. During this conversation, we cut back to Niles' reactions as he drives. Marco stops Frasier from hanging up and reveals he thinks he made a mistake and wants Catherine back. Frasier talks Marco out of it, trying to encourage him to try something new, like moving to a new city. In his car, Niles is shocked.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, let's find out why everyone's talking about Pittsburgh.
I actually went down a little bit of a Google search on this because I was curious. It's like, what was going on in Pittsburgh in 1993? They had a blizzard. That was one of the things. They had a blizzard of 93, and it was on Halloween. And I don't know if maybe the writers were pulling from the headlines because that was around the time that this episode was produced or maybe even written. So I don't know. But that's what was going on in Pittsburgh in 93.
Not terribly far from Pittsburgh in 1993. Like, I was about a state over. And we also had that blizzard. I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Cultural touch point.
Right.
There you go.
And it was 6 feet of snow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's
No, I remember that because Halloween I had to wear ski pants. Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow. Look at that. See, there's Frasier in everybody's life.
There is.
He's interwoven.
Truly. But I agree. I think it's interesting to think about, especially if that blizzard was kind of the motivation behind the writers including it. He's telling Marco, who is the ex of the woman that he's currently seeing, to go somewhere and just bury himself in the snow.
He's in such a denial. Like, he's just like, he wants to banish him to, like, the coldest place he can think of.
He might as well say go to the South Pole. That's hilarious.
Yes.
Get lost forever so I don't have to deal with the ethics of my decision.
Yeah. It's true. It's avoidance for sure.
Mm.
So after his show, Frasier's in the car with Niles. Niles reveals he listened to Frasier's show and asks if he truly had Marco's best interests at heart in his question. Frasier says he doesn't care. He's in love with Catherine and he's in and Marco's out. Niles asks how Frasier's stomach feels. Turns out that Frasier gets queasy whenever he's about to breach his ethics. Frasier points out that at least he doesn't get spontaneous nosebleeds. Niles remembers a
Crane
particular
Brothers.
incident. I know. Remembers a particular incident when they tried to steal $1 from their mother's purse.
Remember the time we lifted that dollar bill from Mom's change purse? We left quite a gruesome trail back to the treehouse that day.
Sure, that with Niles. And the thing that I like the most about that is it, in a subtle way, it gives us some context of some of the common ground that Niles has with Maris. Because, like, you could totally picture Maris having a nosebleed for, like, any reason.
Yeah, like Maris is very waif-like in the descriptions.
When I was reading about the emotion of disgust, because I was like, what is disgust, right? Like, where does that emotion come from? Like, and it had like 4 characteristics of it, and I thought it was funny how Frasier exhibited them all in such a comedic way when he was like, I just thought that like, I was like, wow, look at this. Like, he had the nausea. He had the the stimuli. Like, it was just like so clever. I found this whole, him being so tied to his ethics, and it caused disgust. Like, I just thought it was just so funny. And then the noise he made, I just thought that was just so funny.
I know, it's such a good noise.
Yeah, because it's like you're like, what is wrong with him? Because at first you're like, is he choking? Is he having a stroke? And then it's just a fun, easy.
I know. Before that, Frasier says that he's not queasy at all, so he believes his path is clear. So he thinks he's in the clear. He's fine. He's not feeling queasy at all.
Self-delusion.
So then we move on to the obligatory sex scene, as the title card calls it.
Amazing.
And this is where, again, you see the writers being funny, because if you notice, her outfit is all leather and like tight, and then it's like the attempt to be frisky in the kitchen and the lighting. It was just like the writers were just like, okay, we're gonna give you what you want. Okay, here's the sex.
Bring it on.
All right, like, step by step.
Yeah. So that night, Frasier and Catherine have just finished dinner. Frasier makes a couple of puns, which seem to go down well, and moves into the kitchen. Catherine follows him and asks if Frasier's ever had sex in the kitchen, causing him to drop the plates in the sink. They embrace and start kissing, moving lower out of sight behind the kitchen island when Frasier lets out a queasy-sounding groan. Quickly brushes it off, claiming not to be a kitchen person. What do you guys think about sex in the kitchen?
It's on my bucket list.
It seems a bit uncomfortable in my mind.
Yeah.
The practical part. I was thinking more like adventure-wise. I think
True.
high on adventure. I don't know. I mean, it might just fall into the list of just shenanigans one never repeats again, I guess.
To some later episode when you tell us that you've achieved this.
Hopefully by season 11, okay?
We got a long way to go. I think you got some time.
Plenty of time. So Frasier quickly brushes off it, claiming he's not a kitchen person. They move into the living room and fall onto Martin's chair briefly, setting off the vibrate function. Not to be outperformed by a Barker lounger, they move to the sofa. They recommence making out when Frasier groans again. He checks that Catherine's fine, which rules out the fish.
Didn't you find Frasier's physical movements when he fell into the chair? I just thought that was so, like, you have to be pretty fit to be doing all of the convulsions, and you're kissing and you're moving. That's talent.
They're going at it. This is
They
the
were
most
really
Frasier goes at it in the series.
And we all know Kelsey Grammer has like size 14 feet. So it's like, I was waiting for him to trip and break his neck. So
We know that. I just learned that fact.
Oh, about what?
His size 14 feet. This is new to me.
Is that why Sideshow Bob in The Simpsons has such big feet?
Oh, wow, I bet.
Catherine says there's a bug going around, but Frasier reveals that he can't breach his ethics, otherwise he'll get physically sick. He mentions Marco called into his show and wanted Catherine back, but Frasier didn't give him the best advice. Catherine doesn't care about Marco, but Frasier is adamant that continuing would make him sick. This angers Catherine, who's upset that Frasier first ruined things with Marco, and now but now this. To twist the knife, she says she would have had mind-blowing, illegal in 48 states sex before going for the kill shot. The fish was dry.
And I
I
love
think at this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
her. She does like a flick of the hair.
Yeah.
I love it. Her hair giving me Debbie Moore. You know, I loved it. It was great.
Yeah,
He brings the Eames chair into this scene.
I know.
Like, that's what's on his mind, is testing the structural integrity of an Eames.
That's what he'd like to do.
Right, but ethics. I love how basically this is confirmation that, you know, even if he didn't have his own ethical compass, Niles got in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's it. I find that Niles does act as like the little bit of the ethics conscience fairy a couple of times during the series.
It's kind of like bro code, but on the positive side of bro code. You know, it's like positive.
Yeah.
It is, but I do find it funny that Niles is the person offering these, you know, pieces of feedback when he's obviously like he's doing things like smelling Daphne's hair. I mean, like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about it.
He's not being very ethical himself.
Ethics for me, but not for you.
Yes. What is it? Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
So Catherine leaves and Frasier sits in his Eames. Eddie joins him and Frasier laments that all a dog has to worry about is who's going to walk and feed him, a luxury that he wouldn't know for another 40 years.
Oh.
And that's the episode.
Yeah.
Poor Frasier doesn't get any.
Yeah. Well, in this case, though, he also I'm glad he didn't, because even though it seemed like Catherine had some, you know, interesting things to offer, we wouldn't want to see our main character making an ethical breach, because then, you know, that changes our perception of Frasier. So it's in a way, like it's a good punchline, but it's also retains the character's integrity.
And it's also, I think, very funny because what we're about to get into in the next episode has to deal with kind of more of this
Those ethical areas, they're a little different.
Interesting. That's wow. These writers were on fire in 1993.
You know what? Like,
oh yeah,
it really does show. Like, I obviously I've never been a writer in a TV writer's room, but from what I understand, on a lot of shows, they sort of plan out the season arc at a high level before they start writing each episode. And you can tell that the segue between this episode and the next is really, really strong. So it feels like they had a very clear vision. And I like that. Season 1 is just so tight. It's really good in that way.
Definitely.
Yeah, I honestly can't say there's an episode I dislike.
I like some more than others, but same.
Yeah, obviously.
I think I like this episode because it perfectly tees up the next episode. That's why I like this one. I find this episode charming in a way, like it's teeing up for this great episode that's about to come. And I think it did a good job of just kind of saying, and here we go.
It's on its own, it's not my very favorite, but it is a really wonderful segue. And it's funny. Like, you get a lot of good moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something about this episode is that it sets up that Frasier gets a queasy stomach when he's going to breach his ethics, but that doesn't come up again. But what does come up again is Niles' nosebleeds when he's breaching his ethics. That comes up several times.
What a wonderful character trait.
Yep.
Visible guilt.
It even comes up in reference to Daphne a bit later on in the series. Talking about ethical dilemmas. Anyway, it's a good episode. I like it. I don't love it, but I like it quite a bit. I like it more than
solid season 1 fixture.
Yeah, exactly.
It's how much chest hair Frasier had, though. That was concerned.
The Crane Boys are hairy men.
They are. It was a lot of hair, but overall, still good. So
still good. Yeah. All right. So it's season 1, episode 8. Call Me Irresponsible. Frasier was a bit irresponsible in that episode, I find.
Yeah, definitely.
It connects everything. The call, his ethical dilemma. No notes.
Yeah. Tune in next time for when we hit the episode 8. Beloved Infidel. Can't wait.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Good night, Seattle. We love you.